Welcome, everyone. My name is Christine Perret, and I'm the Executive Director of the AR for Enterprise Alliance. I'll be hosting today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. The purpose of today's webinar is to introduce you to some of the context or the background that led to the formation of this organization, and also to the important leaders that make it possible, that are actively involved in our success. So with me today is Ketan Joshi, VP of Marketing at Aether Labs and the Chair of the Area Marketing Committee. Pete Wassell, CEO of Augmate and the Area Vice President of the Provider Segment. Finally, John Simmons, Technical Executive at EPRI, and he's the Area Research Committee Co-Chair. Unfortunately, Carl Byers had an emergency, and I'm not sure that he will be able to join us today, but he might be joining us in a little bit. So I want to just double check. Ketan, could you give me a little confirmation that you can see my screen and everything's working as you would expect?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So I'll go ahead and get started. Today we'll be speaking about why this organization is important, its background, and the members that make it successful, make it possible. We'll also be hearing the opinions of our panelists about the reasons for forming this organization, the impacts we've already had, and what we anticipate will be possible in the future. At the end, I'll go through a little bit of the member benefits, membership categories and classes, how to join, and then invite you to come and meet with us in person in a couple of upcoming events. So, by way of background, I want to say that enterprise augmented reality doesn't exist outside the context of enterprise IT or enterprise information systems. We're very familiar with those systems today. There's an increasing investment in IT, and it's very, very important to the success of many companies. The information that we have in those systems is abundant, but still separated or disconnected from the objects or assets that they pertain to. There's also some unevenness, or it's not always consistent. The accuracy and the validity of that information can vary enormously. And that can be an obstacle to making the use of this information valuable, making it more expensive and slower to use the information that we have. Further, a lot of the information IT, and especially in Internet of Things and automation, machine-to-machine systems, is for the purpose of reducing reliance on human labor. But there are a lot of processes that remain important, where the human remains important. We can pretty much agree that this evolution, that these systems are on an evolutionary track, and that at some points in the future, the information that's available will be more consistently presented to users just when they need it. It could be that they need it for performing a task or for training, and that'll happen automatically and in context. The systems, the information we have will gradually over time be stronger, more valid, and that this will be able to support performance of these tasks with fewer errors, lower risk, higher quality, and higher compliance. So in general, this trend, this is the direction in which we're going to see things moving, and there will remain important roles for people, because we have dexterity, we have our brains, we can make decisions very quickly, provided that we have enough information, and that this will then continue to play an important role in where people are not replaced by machines, where machines are inappropriate or too expensive. Now, what I've been talking about is the gray bar in the bottom of this blank slide, this blank sheet of paper that I'm presenting to you, in the sense that we take it for granted. We like to think of augmented reality as something that builds upon the enterprise IT systems. And those systems are getting deeper and more complex, more valuable with passing time. And over the last, 48, 24 months or so, this is getting, the trend is just getting faster and deeper because so many sensors are being provisioned, and we are seeing the adoption of the Internet of Things, the Internet of Everything. So this is making the information IT systems even more valuable. And to extract the information that's relevant, many use cases can benefit from having augmented reality to visualize that information, that value that sits in the IT systems. Because if you have augmented reality, you'll probably be able to bring to the user the most relevant information that's fresh and not out of date, that's contextual at the time that they need it and where they need it. So they don't have to go looking for things, especially in tasks that are complex and rare, where it may take a long time to perform the task correctly or to find the documentation that goes with this unusual task or complex process. Having augmented reality available to people in their workplace will also help use resources better. Physical resources, those supplies that might be, machinery or might be building supplies, but also human resources. Experts in a specific domain might be more readily available to others if they can be brought in just in time by way of some collaboration with augmented reality or head-mounted displays that have cameras mounted and integrated into those. So an improved use of resources, and by combining the most relevant data, the better use of resources, we can probably also reduce the errors that are caused by humans being not informed enough or having made a miscalculation. Furthermore, as I had mentioned in the previous slide, compliance is extremely important in many industries where there are a lot of real physical things, physical assets that can be risked or might be costly if there's any damage done to them. So physical plant compliance and regulations have to be complied with, and this is tough. With augmented reality systems, augmented reality assisted systems, we can more quickly capture the state of the condition of an object, the fact that a procedure has been followed according to policy, and then make that easier for people to retrieve later on. And by combining a reduction in time, reduction in errors, better resource use, and these other factors on the left-hand side, an overall reduction in cost seems a very likely outcome. In fact, when we think of all of these 6 factors combined, they can help to boost the operational efficiencies of companies. So, by way of background, this is really where we're coming from, thinking of augmented reality as building on top of existing systems, enhancing those systems, enhancing the performance of the human in the workplace. And as you may have seen, some of you have picked up the Gartner hype cycle this year. It's true that many new technologies go through a period when people have a lot of hope, a lot of expectations, and then when they come to be disappointed because those expectations are not immediately met, they don't follow the promise or the hype, then there is this trough of disillusionment, and augmented reality is somewhere in that zone. It's hard to say, depending on what the use cases are, where it really is. And this is, of course, a very rough approximation, but we like to think that the Augmented Reality for Enterprise Alliance is coming in at just the right time in order to help augmented reality companies or companies that want to buy and use augmented reality reach the operational efficiency to achieve that boost more quickly, because they can introduce augmented reality smoothly and then foster its development, its adoption in their enterprise, especially if it can be embedded or integrated into their existing systems with the help of standards and other tools that will increase interoperability with the legacy and future systems. So we like to think that the area, the AR for Enterprise Alliance, is helping to get enterprise AR across the trough of disillusionment a little more quickly and smoothly than without. Now, who's doing that? Who's supporting and reducing this trough? That's our members. The Augmented Reality for Enterprise Alliance now has 20 members, and we're very, very delighted to have some of those here with us today. So I'd like to now transition over into more of a discussion and ask John, what are the reasons that the Electric Power Research Institute, EPRI, felt that it was important to join? And maybe you could expand that and speak on behalf of other non-commercial entities that are part of the area or that could become part of our organization in the future. John Simmons?
Sure. First of all, you need to kind of explain that EPRI is the Electric Power Research Institute, and kind of our mission is to provide safe, reliable, economic, and sustainable energy to the public. And what we have found over and over again is that these kinds of industry technology alliances, like the area, are extremely valuable in accelerating the adoption of the technology, and also to kind of keep it going after the excitement's gone. So we're very happy to be in the area and to support it, so that we can help accelerate, hopefully, what everybody's expecting as the efficiency gains and the safety gains that are brought on by augmented reality to the electric power industry to provide safe, reliable, energy efficient, and sustainable energy to the public.
Right. Thank you, John. And utilities, as you can see on the left-hand side of this screen, are one of the industries, a very important industry, and one that has embraced or begun to embrace augmented reality. There are other industries. There's about 15 here, I think, somewhere on that order. And these are really mature industries that have a lot of assets in the physical world. And they have their stakeholders and they have their regulations and policies that accompany them. And we're proud to have many of these industries covered among our members, and look forward to welcoming other industries in the future. Could I ask Pete to say a few words, introduce yourself, and talk about the provider segment of the area?
Sure, Christine. It's Pete Wassell, the CEO of Augmate. Just about Augmate real quick, we're a platform for wearables where we do device management, user policies, and also OTA, over-the-air updates to the wearable devices. And on that, the member sheet that we had shown previously, I think it's a previous slide, we've got, I think, some wonderful companies in here that are doing great work. So for example, Apex Labs, they've got their Skylight program, which does a lot of workflow and SOP, standard operating procedure type work. They also connect into the back-end databases like ERPs of SAP, Salesforce, those types of systems. They actually also just produced a report on the state of wearables, which was really interesting. It's a great read, talking about the market of this technology. But other companies on this list, we got Ether Labs, which I'm sure Keaton will go into, their digital eyewear displays, which is an Android and gesture-based system. Some of the other companies, we've got companies that primarily work with government. So we've got Design Mill, we've got Newport News, they've got great AR technology that assists with the design and maintenance of military or government type projects. And then I think some really interesting companies like IQ Agent or Ngrain, and they work like IQ Agent, for example, works within the factories to show real-time analytics of information that's coming off of the machinery. Ngrain does more with inspection and field operations of when folks out in the field. XM Reality does remote maintenance. Fuel FX is doing e-learning and training, so on-the-job kind of training as opposed to classroom type training. And Daiquiri, they've got a very innovative helmet. They've got 4D Studio, which is a great AR SDK piece of software. So I feel privileged and humbled to be a part of this group. They're doing great work. They've onboarded a tremendous number of customers. So a lot of the technology pieces are in place. From a supplier perspective, it looks very healthy to me, this industry and this technology. It's maturing.
Great. Thank you, Pete. I think it's important to note also that the ecosystem of providers is very complex. Ketan, do some of these companies that you see on the list on the right, they're partners of yours, of Aethir Labs? Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. Great question. So, folks, I'm Ketan Joshi. I'm the VP of Marketing for Aethir Labs. At Aethir Labs, we are a smart glasses platform for the enterprise market. Now, as you can imagine, what that means is we have our stereoscopic see-through glasses, which is the hardware component, as well as the software component, which is the operating system and the applications that run on these smart glasses. What that means is we have to really interoperate and work with a wide swath of partners, whether it is from semiconductor players such as Qualcomm's and ARMs of the world to sensor providers, whether it is TIs of the world, AR library providers. It could be, again, Vuforia's, Wikitudes, Matayo's before it was acquired by Apple, or the independent software vendors, many of them, as Pete pointed out, whether it is Ngrain, whether it is Augmented, Fuel FX, or even companies like the SAW Systems, SAPs of the world. By having part of area, this gives us a great platform to really pull all this ecosystem together and really come up with a complete solution for our customers. So for example, we have customers in oil and gas or industrial equipment where they are looking for augmented reality content during their fixing or assembling of their equipment. This is where we can work with the various software players as well as the hardware components to make sure we have the right technologies built into our smart glasses that are working with the application providers to give the complete task flow and the instructions to the end users in the oil and gas. So that's an example of how we work across the complex ecosystem, and AREA provides that great platform to really work with these various agencies.
Great. Thank you for explaining that and sharing the complexity of the system. Well, I think, gentlemen, we should talk about, just as it's a great transition, because the complexity of the ecosystem is one of the issues we face. But let's have you talk a little bit about the barriers to growth. Do you find that people already know what augmented reality is, or is there some problems of awareness and communications? I'd like to perhaps ask Pete to begin. Come back to you, Pete, and tell us on this slide number 11 here, what do you think are the most important barriers? Or do you encounter all of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So the lack of awareness, if it's appropriate to kind of tie this into the kind of the Gartner hype cycle, I think that there's strong parallels that path of that hype cycle is really what this industry is facing. So we talk about inflated expectations, and there's kind of it's a double-edged sword, science fiction, right? It's the inspiration of this technology, but it's also a detriment. When people think about Tony Stark and Iron Man, the thought is the technology already exists, but oftentimes it's difficult to create the technology. Either the components, the electronics, might not be exactly there. So, for example, I know Google's an easy target, but if we look at Google Glass, there were issues with battery life and it heating up, and there were privacy issues in the consumer side of things. And what tends to start off with a skydive stunt at in Silicon Valley at a conference, a Google I/O conference, we get this, a little bit of trough of disillusionment, some negative PR, and some things that have to be overcome. But what really we should be focused on are the realistic expectations. So letting folks know what can be done today, what technology is available that can be put into place, what pain points or problems does it solve in a particular industry, and then we could always iterate on those things and make those things better. But there's a lot that the technology can do today. And when you look at the curve of the hype cycle, I'm sure you could, it's not just AR as a single point. You could actually take a look and drill down into all the different companies that are out there, and they exist in different places on the hype cycle. So, for example, you might put Magic Leap in one area of that curve, and then you might put a different company on a different area. So I don't think it's always that cut and dry. And I also believe that to get out of the trough of disillusionment, if we set realistic expectations, we can kind of then get over to that path to enlightenment or plateau of productivity. Okay. And if you could almost imagine a circle underneath the part of the curve where we're climbing out of that trough of disillusionment, we've got an ability to kind of spin that circle and pull companies and pull the technology into a more realistic place for the industry.
Good. John, do you want to talk about from the utilities perspective, or do any of these barriers resonate? What do you see to be the main barriers?
Well, all of them are minor barriers to penetration in the utility industry. But I think that the biggest one is the uncertainty about the costs, risks, and business value. It's not enough just to have cool technology. It actually has to make things better, faster, safer, fewer errors. And I'm not sure if that has been proven out in the utility industry. There's very few studies in any other industry as well. So one of our research areas is pushing in that direction, is doing that kind of research. But the literature that's out there on the value of AR is kind of spotty. So we're hoping to beef that up.
Okay, so provide the area is also working with our members to provide high quality and to the extent that it's available, quantitative information, as you suggest, John. Ketan, from your perspective, what do you see to be, are these the barriers, and which do you see to be the most important?
Thank you. I agree with both John and Pete in terms of, first, there are two primary barriers that we see when we talk to customers. First is just awareness. Second is what are the best practices to really employ in their particular industry. Let me start with awareness. As I said, we are a augmented reality smart glasses platform. So these are see-through 3D glasses. Many a times I get the first question of, oh, are you guys same as the Oculus Rift? And that's a classic case of an education of what is the difference between augmented reality and virtual reality, that we in augmented reality are marrying the real world with additional information that's contextual, versus virtual reality, you're taking somebody into an imagined world. So that's a prime example that we see. Or again, as Pete pointed out, Google stopped selling the AR smart glasses to the consumers. So everybody that we talk to, first question comes as, oh, okay, does that mean that the AR revolution is on a pause for a while? And that's where we educate that, yes, the consumer market wasn't really ready for this technology. The realistic expectation should be where enterprises can achieve great return on investment, whether it's productivity, whether it is reduced error rate already today. So you don't have to wait. That's another example of how we have to educate folks in terms of what is augmented reality, what its capabilities are. In terms of best practices,
Ketan,
many a times,
I'm
yes.
just going to pop up I'm going to launch the poll on the screen while you're talking, and I'm going to ask the delegates to listen to you and to select what, in their opinion, is the most important obstacles. Please continue. I'll give about a 1 minute for the poll. Go ahead.
Sure, no problem. Another one, for example, that comes in best practices. As Pete pointed out, setting the right expectations for the technology. But we have companies like Magic Leap, what he mentioned, promising elephants flying and things like that. Or Microsoft recently showed the beautiful vision videos. There is certainly the promise of the technology and what we can do with technology today, which is certainly that ability to pull in, for example, in industrial cases, an actual model of a equipment that you're working on and looking through the information of that within the line of sight. But at the same time, it is not a fully immersive experience that you will like to think in a sort of VR experience. So you have to understand those expectations clearly. Another best practice of how am I going to interact with this content? Some people have used, for example, voice as the only method of interacting, and sometimes they get frustrated that, hey, I'm operating in a noisy environment. So educating and identifying the best practice for them. For example, you can combine multiple modalities. You can use, for example, gestures mid-air like we do, gesture controls or head motion, or combine it with voice, because there is no single interaction that is ideal. You combine all these together and form the best practice. Those are some of the educational aspects as well as best practices to implement in the industry that we certainly encourage. And those are the obstacles that we overcome.
Thank
Christine,
you.
if I could throw in something here, this is one of the reasons why EPRI joined the area. Is it's really important to separate the hype from the reality and get a true feel for that slope that comes after the trough of disillusionment, the slope of productivity or whatever it was. It's so important to just not get your information from YouTube videos and the kind of the popular press, because that doesn't really, when the rubber meets the road, that doesn't really get you what you think it's going to get you.
Right, exactly. Thank you. I think that's really true, and it's part of what's been driving us as a group to think about programs and content to close those information gaps and the perceptions. So these are what the three pillars we're talking about in the areas that we need to provide thought leadership. Perhaps I could ask Pete, could you come back and is there a particular program or some content that you wanted to touch on, one of these three pillars that you'd like to explain to our audience today?
Well, I'll tell you what, we're as far as our company goes, we're device agnostic. We're kind of industry agnostic, and I think the most credible information that is really out there are these third-party resources. So when academia does a research study, we work with a group called Brain Exchange. They put out, I think, great resources. They go and talk with folks that have implemented AR solutions, whether it's tablet-based or eyewear-based, and they talk with the companies and the particular solution, what they were looking to solve, the results of it, how far along the project is, if it's in full production. And they put out these reports which are really useful. We could take a look at them and you could spot trends. You could see the patterns of what companies are most interested in. And then I think it's a real validator, and it helps educate, it helps with the awareness. I believe then other groups, whether it's a CTO or CIO organization, a strategy or innovation team, people who are considering wearables or AR as part of their solution, it's not so easy to go out and find the information that's needed, the resources in order to make decisions. If they want to put it on their roadmap, they have to kind of do the due diligence before making those decisions. So having these resources available, I think, are critical. I'd love to see more white papers, more use cases where companies go on the record, whether it was a success or not, even if it was a failure. There's so much that could be learned with these projects, and communicating what was done, what worked, what didn't work. That's what I believe that area will be able to help facilitate and generate some of that content and information. And I think that'll be useful for the industry as a whole.
Good, thank you. I think also that some of you may or may not be aware, we're working on a landscape of the vendors to be able to classify what kinds of tools are out there, when you might want to move towards one class of software or one type of hardware, to be able to see on your screen or in a menu the kinds of suppliers that customers can choose from. There's really so little information out there today. You can't just put give me a AR system into the Google search window and get something meaningful back. There's just really not anything at all of that nature. I think could I ask John to talk about our research framework as part of our leadership? Could you talk about Area Research Committee and what's envisaged there?
Sure. This is kind of a great segue, this thought leadership pillar. When they asked Henry Ford about market research, he replied, "If I asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse." And there's a lot of truth in that. So the goal, one of the goals of the research that we're proposing, and the framework involved in the area, is to do some of that leading edge, practical but leading edge kind of research, because again, our goal is to fill in that trough of disillusionment, and we have a couple of different slices for that. One is research that is driven primarily by the entire organization, and we pool our money to do the research, and that research is shared, and some of it is made public. And then other types of research could be more focused. Say 2 or 3 area members wanted to get together and look at a particular problem. They could go and do that. An area would provide a nice platform for handling all the finances and whatnot. And that's kind of the model that EPRI works under, and that's one of the things that attracted us to the area, is that on the research end anyway, it was a very similar collaborative model.
I like that word collaboration, John, because it fits very well into this next slide. And the concept of the area is that our members collaborate, that they can find different partners and stakeholders, people that they share a common value with, and that through this collaboration, as Ketan spoke about before, produce a better integration of components components that are difficult to integrate, difficult to test, and to understand the pros and cons, and lead through our collaboration, our sharing about knowledge and the experiences that these companies have on the ground in the trenches, and focusing on those customers and their projects, making sure that we have the best possible experiences that can be documented, be measured, and brought to bear. Ketan, do you have anything else you want to add about collaboration, or tell us about maybe what you're doing and how you see this?
Sure. So, as I pointed out early on, in terms of collaboration, there is a lot. There is a lot that goes on in delivering a solution to an end customer. There is obviously the hardware software system itself. There are applications that run on that, whether it is the back-end applications, whether it is integrations with SAPs and Oracles of the world, or the front-end applications, whether it is task flows or training applications like what FuelFX and Grains of the world provide, or it could be the device management kind of capabilities or policies like what Augmate is doing. So when we are engaged with our customers, the advantage we get of collaborating with all our partners within area delivers a complete solution. So the customer doesn't have to really go through this discovery process of multi-months to really understand how to best use AR technologies in their task flows today. To give you a concrete example, we have an oil and gas customer who was looking for both off-site training application for how to fix certain equipment, but also on-site augmented reality when somebody is fixing a piece of, for example, a pump. We worked with area member companies who develop training applications to make sure their applications are ported onto our smart glasses, which is actually surprisingly easy. We are a standard Android application support, so anybody who has developed Android can run on it. But of course, you want to optimize it for smart glasses form factor. So we were able to work with specific providers who provide content on training as well as the augmented reality, have it presented in the right form factor that is suitable for smart glasses, so that it doesn't obstruct the view of the person working on the equipment, and make it an excellent experience for the customer. And this is only possible when you collaborate across the vendors.
That's a great example, Ketan. Thank you very much. And yeah, I just want to let this roll. Go ahead, John. This is
Christine,
showing.
we have a saying here at EPRI, in that none of us is as smart as all of us. And in the area that really plays out, the ability to just pick up the phone and call somebody the caliber of Peter or Ketan is because we have these interactions through area is just so incredibly valuable. And it's again another reason to be involved.
And we've identified I've got the slide 15 up with our committee so far. What I've noticed is the members are identifying what they feel they need to work on, and can define new committees according to or in response to the gaps and what people are looking for. We've already heard a couple of times the mention of safety. Obscuring vision is a very important obstacle or risk. So having a good understanding together, developing an understanding of when and how to maintain safety while using head-mounted displays, or data security, extremely important in most of the industries that we're talking about. Crucial. In fact, the Apex Labs study that Pete mentioned earlier, I think it was 3/4 of the large enterprises say security is the most important obstacle. It's a top obstacle, and all of the respondents in their survey said it's in the top 3, something like that. So Our committees are going to continue to evolve as our members' requirements and questions and new obstacles emerge. Let me summarize a few of the things that we've done to date as an organization. We launched a website when we launched our organization back in May of 2015, May 19th, I believe it was. And we've been producing content very consistently about that, about this segment. We also have issued newsletters, and we have a YouTube channel with playlists about our that feature our members. We've organized we've organized our own, and we've spoken at third-party events. Pete was the chair, and most of our members spoke at the Augmented World Expo. We had a one-day event on the first day just focused on augmented reality and enterprise. Called those the Aware sessions. Then in beginning of July, we had the Arise event in Sheffield, UK, and the end of July we met up at EPRI's facilities in Charlotte for the Leading Edge Utilities event. So I'd like to just ask perhaps, Ketan and John, you were there at ARLU, the event we did in Charlotte. What did you find to be the most important takeaway message? And we just want to treat that very quickly. What would you say were the best things about ARLU?
From my perspective, it was part of that bullet you had up there about dispelling the notion that augmented reality was some sort of a gimmick or a game, and starting to show them again, we had vendors there, show them the high quality vendors and the solutions they've already provided, and just getting the vendors, the utilities, the EPRI people, the standards people all in the same room was huge.
Good.
Yeah, so from Athira Labs' perspective, what was very educational to us is having multiple utility companies in the same room and then having a deep dive discussion into what are your requirements for various use cases. I mean, we obviously know from our initial interactions with many of the use cases, but going down to what do you see obstacles of adoption beyond the first pilots that you may be doing? It was very healthy discussion in getting down to the details and figuring out what are the priorities of these requirements, because it's all about priorities. And we were able to get that very specific so we can definitely optimize our resources to help the end users and prioritize our development as well, which was very helpful.
Good. That's great. Thank you, gentlemen. I want to say, just recap the things that have already been said. Collaboration it's hard to measure collaboration. You can't exactly build a website or capture it in a YouTube video, but you can see results and people speak about those results. We've also done community outreach to different industries. We're also pretty active now on Twitter. We've got about close to 500 followers on two of our accounts. And we're really starting to get some good engagement through our social media channels. Those are our achievements today. I want to take a moment to ask another question of our participants and ask those of you who are on the call, have you had, is augmented reality or enterprise augmented reality relevant to your company? Is it already relevant? Did it become relevant last year or the year before? Is it relevant for you now? Is it something that's just emerging, or are you doing research because you think it's going to be important sometime in the future? Not really sure when. Is it near term, long term? Very interested to better understand where companies are in their progress, in their journey towards this. It's extremely important, and we appreciate that people have taken the time to participate in our event, our webinar here today, and going ahead with this poll. Just give it another couple of seconds here. Anybody else want to vote? Okay. So most people said it's already been relevant prior to 2015. Just to show you that a lot of people said they've had this on their radar. It's probably something you've been studying, which is why you're here, why you're with us today. So I'm going to go ahead and speak a little bit about what what the area's been doing and how we see ourselves going forward. So what the group of us have been doing is talking a lot about the background, where we came from, the struggles, the challenges and barriers, and then we've talked about the area as being a forum for collaboration and research and other outreach kinds of activities. I think over time, what we're going to see is that through a well-organized campaign, there's going to be more and more solutions and technical services, products available, more diversity in the products coming out of vendors and integrated with other existing systems, as Ketan has mentioned, Oracle and SAP. Integration is so important. You're going to be able to see a component. So more options are going to come out. And our customers, the people who are buying systems, are getting better informed. You know what you want, how to use it, how to improve that workplace performance that's so critical to gaining any return on investment from this new technology. And through collaboration between the vendors, the non-commercial entities, and the customers, being able to document the best practices, to establish those, to test them, and then to promote them across many different solutions is going to be really important. And together with more customers, vendors, and better documentation of best practices, getting over some of these initial barriers is going to lead to adoption of augmented reality across every industry. So this is a very important component. Those of you who might be thinking of joining, we do have 3 classes of membership. The sponsor member is the one that has the greatest leadership role. So it's very, very important for those companies who say they've got a stake in this, they're not going to let go, to participate at that sponsor level and have a seat on the board and the ability to chair our committees and drive the activities going forward. Contributor members are also very important. They have access to all our content and programs and participate in the decision making in terms of how we go forward and what we prioritize. Someone said before, priorities are name of the game here. You can't do everything all at once. And then finally, we do want to invite, and we have support for non-commercial entities, state organization, government agencies, universities, non-commercial and academic entities that want to take advantage and participate, contribute to our content and programs going over time. It's quite easy to join. Just visit our portal. You'll see that you can download the bylaws and the membership application and agreement form. You'll find this little box in several places. And of course, don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions or need some more information about the benefits of membership. I think it's really great to have our thought leaders here with us today. I want to thank you, Ketan, John, and Pete for joining us. I think most of you are going to be traveling to the Enterprise Wearable Technology Summit in Houston. Is that right? Ketan, you're going to be there? What do you think is going to happen in about a month's time in Houston?
Absolutely. We will be there. This is a forum where, again, the focus is on enterprise use of wearable technologies, whether it is smart glasses or other kinds of wristbands and health bands and so on. It will be very educational in terms of how various companies are actually using these devices in real life. So looking forward to it.
Yep. I think a few of our members are also attending ISMAR, which is just next week, the International Symposium on Mixed and Augmented Reality, which will be taking place in Japan. Don't believe anybody on this conference call is going to be participating, but do look for area members that might be at ISMAR if you're going to be going. And then we're going to have a reception the night of October 21st right after the Enterprise Wearable Technology Summit in Houston, and we'd welcome our guests to join us and get better acquainted with us. We'd like your feedback as well. We'd like to hear from you. There's going to be at the when this webinar closes, there's going to be a survey that appears. You'll also receive a link to that by email. We'd like to have your feedback on what part of this webinar you liked most, how you'd like to, what you'd like to have in the future, what you'd like to hear about in the future. We've already anticipated a little bit of that, and in 1 month's time, on October 29th, we'll have another webinar where I believe 5 of our customer segment members. So we divide up our members as having customer segment, provider segments, those are the vendors, and the non-commercial entities. So we're going to have our customer segment members are going to be together and talking about why and how they've introduced enterprise augmented reality. Those, I call them the champions. It's because they're bucking the trend. They're trying really hard and being successful in many cases to introduce this within organizations that are very mature and a little bit stuck in their ways. So they'll be talking about their experiences and how they approach it. In November, we'll be coming to this topic of how to prepare your enterprise data for augmented reality. And there's several of our members that have expertise and can share with you what they've been able to do. Any gentlemen, before we close, is there anything you want to say? Anything that you think we may want to highlight before we close today's webinar?
Well, Christine, I want to thank you for putting together such a great webinar. I not only enjoyed participating, but I also enjoyed, again, the information I got from my colleagues.
Thank you. We have a couple minutes for some questions. Does anybody have any questions? I see that we have one question that's been asked, or someone has raised their hand. Is Ron Edwards still with us? And do you want to go ahead and speak to us? Maybe you could write it in the chat if I can't figure out how to get you unmuted. I apologize. I'm just not sure how to unmute you there. So Ron, if you could put your question into the chat area, then maybe we could answer it that way. If anybody has any other questions, you could also type those into the GoToWebinar chat interface, and then we could go right into those questions. So let's see. We have some people who, some people asked if we could share the answers to the polls. I'd be happy to share that as a follow-up. Sure, no problem. And then I think that we can have a dialogue over how that's changing and how that is evolving. Well, Pete and Ketan and John, I want to thank you very much for your participation, your your really great support of our industry, and look forward to working with you going forward. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Christine.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.